Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to Wrestling on webchannel24.com for YouTube. We are talking today about AEW's Full Gear 2020. Of course, from Daly's Place, as everything has been from Daly's Place for the majority of this year because of CV. And yet again, another pay-per-view, the fall pay-per-view for All Elite Wrestling. Before we get into that, of course, I do remind you guys, I do have a mailing list that you can check out to keep in contact with me in case things, on YouTube go awry again as they have gone in the past. So definitely use that subscribe page link down there. Sign up for the mailing list if you're not on it already. You will be updated and notified for all of my new videos and podcasts and everything else that comes out during the week. Also, if you want to check out my Patreon page, you can check me out at patreon.com/Wrestling Rantin. So on to this show, the pay-per-view. I went into this not really expecting much from the pay-per-view. Yes, I'm allowed to have that opinion. I saw somebody was like, I can't believe you would think that. Yes, people are different and they have different thoughts. So, my snarkiness aside from social media nonsense, I didn't go into this pay-per-view expecting very much, but my goodness, they absolutely delivered. This is probably, after Revolution, I think this is my second favorite pay-per-view after Revolution from AEW this year. Started out hot, of course, Kenny Omega taking on Adam Hangman Page. This is the finals of the tournament to decide the challenger for the AEW Championship coming up, whenever that's coming up, probably at Revolution. To be noted, Don Callis, who was very instrumental in as a color commentator in New Japan Pro Wrestling's American side for Kenny Omega's rise up towards the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He brokered the deal between Jericho and Omega for that Wrestle Kingdom show, and he of course is now the EVP, Executive Vice President of Impact Wrestling. He was actually on the show doing color commentary with JR Excalibur and Tony Schiavone, which I was surprised at, but I'm happy to see. Again, this AEW now fulfilling what it said about a year and a half ago about them not being, shunning other wrestling companies. It's been kind of the tradition because the big boys on the block have been doing it for so long, and that's the way they've gotten their dominance. Well, AEW decided to do something different. They've brought in the NWA Women's Champion and had her on shows. Both of them. They've brought in now Don Callis from Impact. Of course, we saw Hiroshi Tanahashi saying something very nice towards Chris Jericho during his 30th anniversary. So AEW, I do applaud them for this, for not acting like the rest of the wrestling world doesn't exist, and for definitely acknowledging that. As far as this match goes, this match was absolutely amazing. They wrestled, it felt like a New Japan style match between these two guys, and they really went at it and knew each other so well. Their timing was almost impeccable. Only a couple of little minor slip-ups here and there, but my goodness. Omega and Page just had a banger of a match. Omega finally getting the one-wing angel. Page was fighting it, but then got locked into it. 1, 2, 3, Kenny Omega, as we kind of expected, has won the tournament and will now go on to challenge the AEW champion at a future date. Much more on that as we get along in the card. The next match on the card was Silvers versus Orange Cassidy, and again, this was another amazing, surprisingly good match. Silver he's like this little spark plug. I think they compared him to Ivan Putski. I mean, he is really, really short, but man, that guy can move, and he's got some power in him, and Orange Cassidy really did a good job of selling and putting him over. Orange gets the win, of course, at the end of all of this, and continues his rise as one of the new fresh stars that AEW has introduced the rest of the wrestling world to. Cody Rhodes, speaking of introducing new faces to the mainstream wrestling world, Cody Rhodes, current TNT Heavyweight Champion, or just TNT Champion, was defending his title against Darby Allin. Now, I had predicted, for those of you who follow me on Patreon, I did an exclusive Patreon preview show for Full Gear, of my predictions, and I thought this was my out on the limb prediction that Darby Allin would win this match. Darby Allin and Cody had been going back and forth. They've had several matches with each other in AEW. The first one, probably the most famous one, was back at Fyter Fest last year, where it went to a time limit draw, which really helped establish Darby Allin on the map. It was one of those old Ric Flair things that he used to do with Sting, Lex Luger, and Barry Windham. Cody, following that tradition, being the traditionalist that he is, did that here. He played heel in this match. Darby Allin, of course, playing the babyface. Got a couple good moves in here and there. There was a crossroads from off the top rope that looked absolutely crazy and insane. To be noted, during most of this match, Arn Anderson was having a lot of problems with Cody doing push-ups, with him showboating. He was on riding Cody's ass the whole time, and Cody was goofing off a little bit too much, and he goofed off in the end, wound up getting pinned. Darby Allin won the TNT Championship, the face of TNT. The crowd chanted, "You deserve it." Cody shook his hands. Arn Anderson was not pleased at all at ringside. However, all of this love fest ended when Taz comes out and starts berating everybody for having a love-in, and then Team Taz comes in, Starks and Cage come in, and they just lay waste to everybody, including Arn Anderson. Then there's a little moment there where Starks and Cage are kind of fighting over the TNT Championship, and Taz has kind of got to, okay, come on, we know, let's take him out. They're gonna they take Darby Allin out to the car that Darby Allin came in on, and we're going to put his arm in the car door and crush his arm in the car door, which would have been crazy if they had actually tried to do that. Fortunately, Will Hobbs came in, made the save, and then Will Hobbs, back in the background, he's like he's chased them off and tearing up the barricades. Their barricades are flying up in the air, everything in the background. But the focus was on Darby Allin, who got brutalized in this one. Team Taz is now going to be definitely gunning for him in that TNT Championship, and maybe he will have an ally in Cody Rhodes. Cody, however, I've been suspecting there are going to be problems with Arn Anderson. I'm really wondering if that's going to come out, because Arn did not look pleased at what Cody was doing in this match. So keep an eye on that little thing, and keep an eye on the tug of war for the TNT Championship within Team Taz, whether that becomes something in the future. I'm going to skip around to a lot of things. I enjoyed the women's title match for what it was. Again, they're still getting their women's division up and running. There were a lot of promos for this coming week's Dynamite, which is an interesting thing to see, that they're trying to get over what's coming up this week on Dynamite. So, I appreciate that. It felt a little old school too. A lot of the wrestling shows used to do that back in the day. I know WWE started doing that again. Another highlight match that I wanted to look at, and again, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but Chris Jericho and MJF. I was absolutely very curious as to how this was going to play out. Now, given all the other matches on the card, which were very high impact, fast paced matches, this one was a little bit more of a slow burn, but it worked amazingly well. Jericho with Jake Hager in his corner, of course, Wardlow in the corner of MJF. Those two big heavies constantly looking at each other like they just give me a reason to get, that's both of them looking at each other like, give me a reason to come whoop your ass. They really want to go at each other. Of course, the stipulation was if MJF won this match, he would become part of the Inner Circle. He did win this match in true Eddie Guerrero fashion. He has Wardlow throw him the Dynamite ring, and he's gonna go hit Jericho, but then Jericho gets the bat, I think it was a chair or a bat. I can't remember. I think it was a chair or the bat. Either way, a foreign object, an international object, and the referee's back is turned. Poor Aubrey getting jaw jacked by Jericho. They have this little banter going on with each other all the time, which I thought was funny. But Aubrey's distracted, the referee, and Jericho raises the chair, and MJF is just like, screw you, and just falls down as if he was hit by the chair. When Aubrey turns around, it looks like Jericho had hit him, and Jericho's like, no, I didn't hit him, don't disqualify me. MJF gets the roll up, gets the win, and MJF and Wardlow are now part of the Inner Circle. They may need him because of what happened later on in the night, but that was pretty good. And after the match, they celebrated. The big heavies are still eyeing each other up. They don't like each other, but I'm loving the storyline that they have with Jericho and MJF, and we kind of know where it's going, but again, it's a thing about enjoying watching the journey to get to where we think this is going, which eventually might be MJF taking over the Inner Circle from Jericho, and Jericho going off to become a face. The Elite Deletion match, which these deletions always have these great names to them. This was a cinematic. again, I'm not a big fan of the cinematics. I can enjoy them when they're done. I like the Boneyard match. I like the Bray Wyatt thing that WWE did earlier in the year. The Stampede thing that AEW did was pretty cool. But this one, I actually really got a kick out of. And it went long, but I got a kick. They kept throwing in new wrinkles over and over again. So Sammy Guevara goes to the Hardy compound. Hardy he's in his little cart, which Sammy Guevara is synonymous with this cart now because of what happened at the Stampede. And you got Matt Hardy in the monster truck, tries to crush him. And then from then on, it's just crazy all over the place. You got fireworks and Roman candles. You got Private Party showing up, Santana Ortiz showing up. Then all of a sudden the Hurricane's there. Gangrel shows up. Gangrel, for God's sakes. It is just, and they're still going and running around. Sammy's getting hit in the ass with fireworks and stuff. Then they get into the dome of something or whatever, and it's so much, I can't even explain it. You're just gonna have to go see it. I mean, this thing is just off the wall, batshit crazy. They make a lot of references to the fact that there's some holdovers from the WWE stuff and from the Impact stuff, and Matt Hardy's going to Hurricane. Well, I had to sign with AEW before we could tie the story up. It's like, oh my God, the meta stuff is pretty good. But then it got really brutal at the end. Sammy and Matt inside of the little garage where the ring is at, where we've seen a lot of deletions before. Bray Wyatt fell in this place too. Sammy Guevara fell here as well. Sammy got really brutalized. They did a nice little camera work with it. The chair shot to the face was just brutal. It looked like it was they did some camera trickery with that, but it looked brutal. And then the final concerto on the concrete, Sammy's head is bleeding. Of course, they put the blood. He wasn't really bleeding, but they put the blood out there. It was brutal. Then they put him in a trash can. Private Party comes in and they go wheel him off the trash, the garbage, Sammy Guevara. The feud between Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy, which has had so many pitfalls, real life pitfalls in it, has finally come to an end, and it came to an end in a very satisfying way. This is probably one of the best deletions I've seen since the Impact ones that Matt Hardy did. This was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I wonder where we're going with Matt Hardy. I did comment that Matt Hardy clearly hasn't watched Breaking Bad because you're supposed to dissolve those bodies in acid in one of those big plastic containers that that Walter White had in Breaking Bad. But I think a trash can will do for Sammy. Sammy will be back, maybe. I think after that brutal beating, he should probably just be off TV for a week just to sell it that he got his butt whooped. I mean, literally, he was battered and bruised. Every time they always say it looks like he's been in a car wreck. Well, Sammy actually legitimately did look like he was in a car wreck at the end of this match. I'm going to get to what I felt was the main event of the show. FTR versus the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championship. I was worried about this one. Matt Hardy came into this one with a legitimate ACL and an MCL tear. He was injured, but my God, they hit a home run with this one. This was what I expected it was going to be. It's as good as I expected it was going to be. There's so much back and forth in here. They referenced through moves, through maneuvers, and even the commentators. I think about every tag team that has ever existed was referenced in this match. I mean, you had stuff from the Hart Foundation, from the British Bulldogs, from the Midnight Express. They even referenced DIY from NXT, the Rockers. They referenced the Hardys. I mean, the Steiner Brothers. There was so many references to so many tag teams throughout the history of wrestling in this match for both teams. This was great. This was the epitome of what I thought this match was going to be. And even with the lackluster build to it, even with Matt Jackson having the injury to his leg, they were able to get this match to, I mean, I don't do star ratings, but this is definitely a match of the year contender in my book. Hands down. In the end, the irony of it all, the flips do it. There was a flip attempted. FTR tried to flip, completely crashed and burned, and that led to them losing the match and the AEW Tag Team Championships. The Young Bucks winning the titles. Kenny Omega comes out and celebrates with his friends. These guys, of course, go way back to New Japan and Ring of Honor back about 5 or 6 years ago, or however long it's been. You see Hangman Page off in the entrance ramp watching. So now the speculation can begin. Is Hangman, North Carolina boy, going to team up with FTR, North Carolina boy? Are they going to have a unification there. Tully Blanchard, of course, he is part of FTR. I also mentioned earlier Arn Anderson didn't look too pleased with Cody Rhodes. So we might be having that, what I've been expecting is going to happen, at least with these three guys. I still wonder if Omega is going to be a surprise fourth horseman in this thing. But it doesn't look like it right now, but I'm still kind of wondering if that might be the swerve they're going to throw at us. Of course, if I'm right about that, you guys owe me $1. But anyway, I thought this was a really good tag. This is one of the best tag matches of the year, and they had a lot to follow because the Young Bucks Hangman Kenny Omega match from Revolution earlier in the year was a match of the year contender for most of this year and still is. So hats off to FTR and the Young Bucks for making this thing amazing. I'm going to go back and watch that match after I'm done with this recording. The official main event of the show was Jon Moxley defending the AEW Championship in an I Quit match against Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston, I'm not sold on him. I know he's been around for a long time. He's a great wrestler. He's a great hand in the ring. This feud, I still don't think it was earned. I still would have preferred to have seen Eddie Kingston beat somebody, or at least 2 or 3 guys in the top 10 to feel like this was validated. But again, it doesn't really matter for this. This is a grudge match, and Moxley did what he wanted to do, and they keep bringing up that Moxley's already beaten everybody in the top 5 anyway. So this was pretty brutal. This is what I expected. It was a little less violent than I expected. I expected them to go a little bit crazier with it, but they did go pretty crazy with it. Of course, we had thumbtacks, we had barbed wire, we had chair shots, we had all kinds of crazy stuff. We had pieces of barbed wire used as hand weapons. It's just like a lot of blood, people bleeding from the mouth, people bleeding from the arms, people bleeding from the back. Kingston dumped alcohol on Moxley's back after Moxley fell into the thumbtacks. That could not have felt good. Renee Young had a heart attack watching this match on Twitter. But at the end of the day, it was Jon Moxley getting the win. He did get a win by making Eddie Kingston say "I quit" by putting him in basically a crossface with the barbed wire tied around, and just that was nasty looking, man. It was razor wire too. It was pretty nasty looking. But yeah, Moxley gets the win, retains the championship. He tries to connect with his old friend. Excalibur did a good job talking about the history of all of them, including Excalibur and the referee and Moxley and Kingston in the Indies from years and years ago. JR did a good job of referencing historic I Quit matches, including Ric Flair and Terry Funk from '89, and of course the infamous I Quit match at Starrcade '85 between Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard. I've talked about that on my channel many times. If you haven't seen that match, either one of those matches, you got to go watch them. After the match, we got Kenny Omega coming out doing kind of the obligatory, it was kind of like a New Japan thing. He came out, he didn't really do anything. He just let Moxley know he was there, talked about, hey, we're not going to do this hardcore shit anymore. We're going to do a straight up wrestling match. And then the show went off the air. So overall, I got to say, again, I went into this show lukewarm. I wasn't expecting much from it, but they knocked it out the park. I mean, Full Gear 2020. This was a really damn good pay-per-view, one of the best of the year from any wrestling company. I definitely recommend you go checking it out. A lot of stuff set up for the future here. They've got all of these like different threads going on, and that's not even including some of the things, Lance Archer and Jake Roberts referencing that Captain Kangaroo song from Pulp Fiction, smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. I haven't heard that song since I've seen Pulp Fiction, but that's an old song. Go check out the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. But they're pretty much letting everybody know that they don't care who it is. They're going to just wipe through people. So I'm expecting kind of a 1997 Kane and WWF kind of thing where Archer just comes out and just brutalizes people just because he can. The Team Taz stuff with Darby Allin is still going on. Will Hobbs is still involved in that. So many little threads. MJF is now in the Inner Circle, so we got to see how that's going to play out. And where are some of these guys going? What's going to be new for Matt Hardy? What's going to be new for Sammy Guevara? So AEW's roster is pretty stacked now, which a roster that seemed anemic, maybe about a year ago is now kind of overstuffed. There's they've got so many guys that some of the guys you wanted to see weren't even on the show. So I want to know, however, what you guys thought about AEW's Full Gear 2020. Again, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was one of the best pay-per-views of the year, but I want to know what you guys think because, again, we're all allowed to have different opinions. So let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Definitely share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, wherever you talk about AEW, pro wrestling, and sports entertainment. I will see you guys either on my Patreon page or this weekend for the podcast. Definitely stay tuned for that. And next weekend for more videos, reviews, synopsises, and all kinds of other crazy stuff about the world of pro wrestling right here on Wrestling for Web Channel 24 on YouTube. Have a good day.